Hi there, I'm Judith Marie. I'm an artist, and I think I've been an artist since I was born. I've always had a real need to make things. I remember, especially when I go to my grandparents' farm, where my mom was not around, I could make mud pies and build little things with sticks and mud, and I didn't get yelled at for getting all dirty. um, I grew up in Nebraska, and I went for grad school and majored in art, of course. And really, that was my first structured education. I had only one high school art class, and confirmed what I already knew, that art was my thing, what I really wanted to do. And and then it really enjoyed my university years in grad school because it was my first time of really having my focus on art materials and talking and having people around me who really, really valued art, which wasn't my family experience at all. So those years went great, and shortly after that, we moved to Colorado, which had always been my dream to live in Colorado. And so it was a dream come true in a lot of ways. It's a very, uh, I found Colorado Springs much more art nurturing than Lincoln, Nebraska, and always have really loved being here. And I lived in Chipeta Park for 15 years and now live in Manitou for another almost 15 years. And it's just been so conducive to nurturing my art interests and instincts and having arty people around me. I love being here. This show focuses on clouds. Abby asked me to do cloud sculptures to also highlight and focus on these beautiful paintings that she teamed me with. And it's really been a wonderful experience. I thought, my artwork is kind of contemporary, but also a little on the whimsical side. And when I saw Megan's work, I wasn't sure that I would fit. And when both of us, when Megan was here at the opening, we were together and we were both looking at each other's work and thought, wow, how well they go together. So that was really a positive experience. And I admire her work completely. It's such a unique expression of landscape that I hadn't seen before. And lots of clouds, which really creates the tie-in between the two of us, is the cloud theme. Like I said, my cloud sculptures tend to be more on the almost a kind of cartoony look, and I I've always appreciated clouds. Clouds is something when Abby asked me to do this, I started looking at some of my other work, and in my drawings, um, I do a lot of clouds. And for me, clouds are something wonderful to look at. I have friends who live in Mexico, and my best place in the world is to be on their roof and watch clouds float by and birds fly by, and it's just heavenly. Most relaxing place that I've ever been. Um, but anyway, clouds, I think, are something that attracts. I mean, we have a beautiful blue sky today, but I love to see just a cloud floating by here and there that kind of reminds you of imagination and things, ideas floating through your head. And I named this show Cloudy Thoughts because I do have a sense of all my life being very distracted by things floating through my brain that don't have anything to do with what I'm doing. When I was teaching high school at Sierra High School, I one day students stopped and laughed because I was walking across the room to get something and I just stopped. And they were all looking at me like, what is she doing? And there was some idea that just needed to be processed at that particular moment, irregardless of where I was or what I was doing. And I think that, people have said, oh, you live inside your head a lot, which is true. I do. I manage to still get things done as well, but that's kind of part of my personality, I think, is to always have something else floating around there in my head about art. And anyway, these are things that I've worked with before. It's a polyester clay, and which is essentially a form of plastic. And it's easy to manipulate, and I've done a lot of clay sculpture as well, and I love to work with both. They each have different properties, and obviously this clay is a lot cleaner to use. It doesn't get, you don't get all muddy. Um, but it has some advantages. One being that you don't have to go through a firing process. And if anybody's interested in experimenting a little bit with clay for the first time, this is a perfect thing to try to see if that manually manipulating your hands to form things appeals to you. It's really gratifying to actually work directly with something that's three-dimensional. I do a lot of drawings and some painting, and then tried lots of materials and had to get fairly good at all of them in order to teach them to my students. So printmaking and all other kinds of art forms I've done as well. But anyway, this is something when you have that immediacy that you can stick it in your toaster oven and have it come out in a minute, maybe 20 minutes, and be able to then manipulate it and add to it. You can add to it and break off pieces that after it's fired that you can't do with a clay piece. So anyway, and these pieces have a lot to do with imagination. They have to do with relationships. I always feel that when whatever material I'm working with, that the key to it is that um, it has to do with security, safety, as opposed to risk and threat. And that's always been my focus in relationships, is hopefully to help people feel a sense of safety in who they are, security, and knowing that you're a person of value. And so even though the forms change, the images change, it's always about that. It's always important to me to help people feel a sense of security. And it does that for me. They usually have some inner meaning, and I don't always recognize immediately when I've done a piece what that meaning is. And I've talked to other artists, and they have the same experience where you don't necessarily understand what your thought process was while you were making it, but later you can come across, that's, that's where I was at that moment, and those were my thoughts, and that's why this thing came about. So this one is called Into Every Life, which is a saying. I like puns, I like quotes, and into every life some rain must fall is what the expression is. And so I got this idea of using these little acrylic rods, and the, the most difficult part is I have a cloud mold that I used for these three. Although they look different, I use different parts of the mold to get the shapes. But all of a sudden I have half a cloud, and then I'm thinking, okay, I turn this over, how am I going to make that so that I can put these rods in it and I can have two firm forms that stick together and make the whole cloud. And the issue was that the firm piece and the soft piece, when you put the soft piece on top, it just goes right into the shape. And so what I did is stuffed it with paper, which worked out great until I started to put the rods in, and now I've got to deal with all this paper inside. But eventually it worked, and getting them the right length, all that, there's always a challenge. I don't think an artist can ever approach a piece without knowing things are going to go wrong. I always told my students there's a point where you hate it, you want to throw it away, but you persevere and you end up usually with a successful piece. So this is Friends. I feel like friends need some space between them. They need to be their own individual person and be respected by each other, but it's also a closeness in the relationship. This one is castle in the air. It's another expression that's often talked about when you're floating ideas through your head, that you're creating that special place, this place of enchantment maybe, and you can kind of go there in your mind. And a lot of times it's a negative expressions. Oh, you're just building castles in the air. You know, it won't be real. Well, in these circumstances, they don't have to be real. They're just imaginary. This one's called Snowy Rockies and has the clouds floating around the top, which is a beautiful sight to see when you see the mountains starting to emerge. I live right almost under Pikes Peak in Manitou. You have to look up to Pikes Peak. So from my home, I can see a view of Pikes Peak, and very inspiring. So other pieces here. Here's another expression from a little song. It's called Just a Little Black Rain Cloud. And it's from a song by Winnie the Pooh in a Disney movie, where he says that I'm just a little black rain cloud floating over the honey tree. And it was a favorite of my younger daughter, and she sang it a lot. And I just wanted to try, most of the clouds here are white, and so I wanted to try different idea of having a black cloud, which can also be very beautiful. Thunderheads, especially when they're rolling over, I love to see those really rich black and gray clouds within a thunderhead. This one's just called Rain Cloud, and this has a companion piece. This is called Bad Mood, and it's a black cloud with lightning shooting out of it, which to me respects those days when you just, everything seems to be going wrong, you're feeling frustrated, maybe a little bit angry, and another cartoony idea of bolts of lightning flashing out of you. So this is Daydream. And again, it's something I do regularly. I think probably most artists do, where they want to think something through, some idea that comes into their mind, and they're not certain what way to go with it. We have to spend, you can sketch, but it's still, your sketches never quite represent that idea in your head that's actual, a 3D image in your mind of what you want an artwork to be. And so I know that there are artists who work completely by intuition, who just take blank paper, a blank canvas, and begin working and let the idea come there. But I've always been a planner, and I like to have the image, do some sketches maybe, before I start working on. I always have an idea of what the end is going to look like. And most of the time it comes really close. It's usually very close to what my image was. So this one is called Cloud Home. I've done many houses with exactly this house's little dimensions. I've cast them in acrylic, I've cast them in clay. This one is plaster, I think. And it has a starry sky inside of it. And again, it's that idea of your home. Most people feel their home is their refuge. After a hard day at work, you go home, you kick your shoes off, whatever, and stop thinking about everything and trying to just make that time at home restorative and peaceful. And so that's what this little cloud is about. That this cloud house is this refuge above the clouds. This one is called Rocky Mountain. And a lot of times when you're doing artwork, happy accidents happen. And I had made, I'm going to hold it up. I had made this shape of a mountain and took quite a lot of time to get all these little trees on here. And this, I wanted to have a rough surface so it looked like stone. And when I put the dripping snow and the little cloud on top, a lot of the clay, the pigment in it came off of my fingers. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh no, how am I going to get that off? And then all of a sudden I thought, wouldn't this be nice to just take what's on my fingers and rub it across the rest of the surfaces so it has a little bit of frost and snow on the stone and the trees. So that's what I call a happy accident. And they don't happen often, but it's really fun when they do. This piece actually comes from a dream that I had, and it's called A Higher Perspective. And I dreamt that in my backyard, I built this tall, tall structure with no stairs or ladder to get to it, but that it was up in the sky, in the night sky. And again, I used little rhinestones to make stars within it. And again, a place of safety, refuge, imagination maybe, and hard to get to, but it is that time when you think of something that you've been maybe having difficulty with, and all of a sudden you rethink it, and you rethink it from the point of view of a higher perspective, where it's not a bad thing, where it becomes something that you can solve and move on. And back here, this is, my grandson told me that he liked this a lot because it looks like an egg, and he loves food. But the title of it is Sun Above. And I was thinking that again, a positive message from it is that the sun is always shining. We don't see it on a cloudy day, but it's always up there above the clouds. I hope that, to me, that feels like, well, that's a good thing, because some days it doesn't feel like I'm enjoying these clouds, and knowing that the sun is shining always is a positive message for me and maybe others. This is the companion to the other little house form, and it's called Good Mood. And here we have the cloud beside it, and the sun is actually exposed. So, there's nothing better than getting up to a bright sunny day in the morning for setting you off on a good mood. Now, these other pieces that I've been showing you are done with the polyester clay. And if you want to try it, there's a good brand called Sculpey, Sculpey, and they make two types of firmer clay. The colored ones that I always had my kids play with in school, and my own children, is more malleable and movable. And that's an advantage when you're playing with it, but when you want it to hold its shape, you need to move to the super sculpey or the firm sculpey, and those are great to try out. Firm is tough to get moving, but there are methods you can use. If you have a microwave, you can warm it a little bit and it'll soften it up. But these three clouds are called sunny day clouds, and these are the kind I like to see, like today when I was driving here, to see them floating above me, and at the stoplights, watch the clouds go by. They have a little bit different characters, and they're just sunny clouds 1, 2, and 3. This last piece was my nemesis in this project because I had a lot of difficulty with it. I don't recommend making a piece this large, or at least this extended in length, from polymer clay. I broke it a couple of times. It fell apart in the middle. It's just the weight of this clay is almost exactly the same as ceramic clay. But if you stretch it out to this distance, you may have a weaker spot in the middle, which I found to be true. But just like I always told my students about, when you hit that place where you're wanting to quit and throw it away, uh, step aside for a few days and go back to it, and you can achieve the original image that you were heading for. And this is just called Dreamer. I'm actually in a dream therapy group that I share with other artists. One of our artist friends is a Jungian dream therapist, and we've been together now for 30 years. And it's amazing how, I mean, dreams aren't predictive. All they do is make it clear to you what your mental state is at that moment. But it's interesting how close they are always to the real feelings and what's going on in your life. So this is my dreamer, and she eventually turned out just fine. So normally I would ask for questions. Abby, do you have any questions? The chair, the daydream. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I've always seen, I was talking about safety and security. To me, an overstuffed chair is the perfect image of comfort, and and it's a perfect place to daydream. So that's why I chose that image to make. And again, this is at the plastic clay. It does have a cardboard structure within it to support it. So I learned that you can make something larger as long as it isn't long and narrow. It works pretty well. So I encourage people to try different art forms that I find it to be frustrating at moments, but for the most part, just the fact of using your hands to create something, whether it's three-dimensional or two-dimensional, whether it's a drawing, a painting, pastel, whatever material you try, it's just takes you out of yourself. It gives you a higher perspective. It takes you away from the humdrum of life, if that's what your life is like, and gives you a place to express your emotions. That's another thing I think about clouds. I think clouds express all of our emotions, whether it's a beautiful sunny day, little fluffy clouds floating by like today, or whether we're in the middle of a thunderstorm with black sky and torrential rain, or even a tornado. I have done lots of tornadoes in my work accompanying those little houses. And yeah, it's a threat, but the thing that people say is, well, whatever trauma you have makes you stronger. Well, that may be true, but going through the process, we express a lot of emotions, and I think clouds, to me, express those more uh, wonderful, dreamy type images, but also the threat and violence of a terrible storm. So growing in Nebraska, I had some experience with tornadoes. So anyway, okay, I think that's it.